I first began to really hear and talk about this concept of loneliness, particularly amongst college students, around 2017. A colleague of mine forwarded me an article that talked about the rate of loneliness amongst college students. And at that time, we had began to have conversations around engagement and the concept of belonging and how our programs could help students increase their sense of belonging on campus. 3 years later, the pandemic hits, and at the time that I saw that article, the things that were really high on the agendas of students were the contentious political environment in 2017. Many campuses were seeing this rash of controversial speakers come to their campuses, and the myriad of issues that those items presented. It's been challenging for several years now for students to sometimes find work after they complete their college degrees, and then the pandemic hits, and all of those things are exacerbated. But then you also have the racial injustice of the summer of 2020 and the murder of George Floyd, and all of these things that are happening. And one of the ways that I think we have seen this particular issue represent itself is as a huge increase in the numbers of visits that are taking place at our university counseling and testing center. So students are really having to use those resources in a way that they in the past have not really been so open to do, and particularly open to talk about. But we are seeing those numbers at our counseling and testing centers really increase, and a lot of the students are talking about this sense of loneliness, that they have everything in the world in their hand, in their devices and through technology, but they are still experiencing this sense of loneliness. And oftentimes when they are even present, because of the presence of technology and social media, they oftentimes are not present when they are present, because they're engaged in technology and in their phones. And when that ends, they find themselves with this feeling of loneliness, I think.
Hmm. Yeah, you raise a really important point. Oftentimes when we focus on this issue, loneliness, social isolation, so on, we focus on the individual and the effects on the individual or the experience of the individual. But you raise also the importance of understanding the social context, sociocultural factors that are impacting and driving this as well, huh? And I'm wondering, Skitch or Wesley, from your perspective, what are you seeing among the young people that you serve, and are you observing from your perspective, are there any particular social factors that you see driving this increase of loneliness and isolation?
It feels like to me that what the pandemic did was expose things that were already there. Like all of a sudden the Band-Aid was ripped off. And I moved to Princeton in August of 2020 to begin seminary. And because I am older than most of the students here, my role here became kind of a paternal or big brother kind of role to these, they're babies to me, like 22, 23, 24-year-olds. And these are people who are going into the ministry mostly, and many of them had no tools to deal with the very thing they're going to face when they are in congregations, in congregational settings. So there was an extraordinary amount of among my classmates of this like epidemic loneliness, and I think that the seminary, like a lot of places, is now playing catch up as far as how do we, and just because culturally, these are people who are going to be in ministry, we take care of it ourselves, we figure it out ourselves. And it's also a very kind of particularly male kind of thing as well. So you have these young men who have never been taught, never been socialized to express feelings. And it's easy to say, okay, now let's tell us how you feel, and without any tools, without any facilitating of that. So I think what I felt is that institutions maybe we're not quite ready for what is hitting them right now in real time.
Mhm.
And it feels like we're playing catch up.
Mhm. Yeah. Sketch, anything from your perspective that you want to share?
Yeah, I'd agree with both of what's been said so far. Uh, and I remember having a conversation via Zoom during, middle of the pandemic um, with someone who was living just a few miles away, and she was talking about how she could tell already in the middle of the pandemic, maybe it was 2021, she was like, my ability to converse with people has just decreased. Like, I don't know how to socialize anymore. I'm gonna have to relearn this skill. And that's for somebody who, at that point, she was in her mid 30s, getting her PhD. She knew how to socialize. She had a very strongly connected friend group. Even for her, she lost something and had to regain it. So, especially when we're talking about people that may not have had this skill, as Wesley said, like this Band-Aid, this was a problem already that we just pulled the Band-Aid off and now we can expose it, we can see it. For people that don't have this skill, it's not a relearning, it's trying to learn it for the first time. And learning something for the first time is just always really, really difficult. So I think that that's something that was exposed that, yes, we're all playing catch up here. I'm playing catch up. Like, I don't want to sit in this conversation, I don't know about others, but it's not like I fully regained all of my social skills. I can still tell that, like, either I'm exhausted or I don't know what to do in certain situations. I'm wondering, like, I'm still questioning myself in some situations, even now in 2023.